I'll admit that I occasionally will shave, trim down a little bit what's a very healthy, natural, large bush of pubic hair, and I will trim a little bit the hair on my balls, but I don't like the idea of getting rid of it entirely, certainly not my pubic hair. Hi, this is Mike Balaban with another episode of BAMMER Talks. Thank you for joining us again today. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button should appear at the bottom of the page, and become a regular viewer. We appreciate your patronage. I like to interact with my viewers. Please provide comments, ask questions, etc. Today I want to talk about manscaping. That's a trend that is pretty popular right now, and I'll describe what it means. But the actual practice is an old one, going back to ancient Egyptian times. Manscaping refers to trimming, shaving off, sculpting one's body hair. And that can go from your hair on your head, to your facial hair, your beard and your mustache, to your body hair like chest hair or arm hair, and all the way down to your nether regions, to your pubic area, where there is a popular trend right now where people are entirely shaving off all their pubic hair and shaving off the hair on their testicles. The practical value of this is nil, but stylistically, we all have different preferences. So again, going back to the Egyptian times, trimming one's body hair was considered a sign of status and of hygiene. You wanted to look like you came from the upper class, you shaved your hair off. Hygiene kept you free from lice and other vermin which proliferated in those ancient times. Following that to the next historical era, the Greeks and the Romans did it, and they tended to do it as a sign of youth and beauty. You were younger if you weren't hairy. And so a lot of people wanted to look younger, trimmed themselves down. Following that, it's been back and forth throughout the ages. And then in the late 20th century, metrosexuality arrived, and now even heterosexual men have adapted the trend of changing their physical appearance with respect to their hair. Gay men have often been the leaders in this, as we are stylistically in many other areas. During my lifetime, I've watched the trends come and go, change back and forth. In the 60s, the Beatles were the first to start wearing long hair, and teenagers went crazy trying to emulate them. If you look at my senior high school picture, which we'll share here today, you'll see me with a bowl haircut in 1969, 1970, because I was emulating the Beatles. Then Stonewall happened in 69, and gradually gay men and women began to enjoy more freedom and more ability to be themselves. Then along came the 70s, and the era of hippies and the anti-Vietnam War led to long hair. Some people were unkempt. It was a very rambunctious area. But by the late 70s, and after Richard Nixon had been president, a more conservative trend took hold. And in the general population, hair got very short, except in the gay community. We'd come out of a period where we were suppressed and were thought to be effeminate. And a lot of us in the late 70s adopted hyper-masculine images to try to counteract the public consideration of us as less than masculine. So the clone look in San Francisco and in Greenwich Village, it emerged, which allowed people to wear super masculine clothing, checked flannel shirts, vests, tight jeans, leather wear, leather pants, leather belts, leather vests, and facial hair. That made us, kind of like the loggers, or made us super masculine. And that was an important part of our culture from the late 70s until the 80s. But then along came AIDS, and over the course of the 80s, hairy aspect of our culture began to diminish. And by the 1990s, all of a sudden we were in a period where gay men were ritually trimming our chest hair, trimming our body hair, trying to look cute and young and hairless. Then the 2000s arrived, and in that period, we went back to focusing on hairiness again. The bear community came out in 2005, 2010, and they're burly, hairy, and proud of it. And so the dominant look in the gay male community in the late 2000s and right into the teens has been one of hairiness. Now, in the last 5 years or so, the notion of manscaping to include trimming one's internal body hair, the hair that's not seen under the clothing, has grown in popularity. Now, there's this one particular aspect of manscaping today that really escapes me, and I'll be curious to hear input from my audience as to what you think about it and how you personally do or don't embrace the notion of trimming or shaving completely your pubic hair and your testicles. I'll admit that I occasionally will shave, trim down a little bit what's a very healthy, natural, large bush of pubic hair, and I will trim a little bit the hair on my balls, but I don't like the idea of getting rid of it entirely, certainly not my pubic hair, because it makes you look boyish. And this is probably a controversial thing to say. If I was into kind of boyish, younger guys, that's who I'd be going after as dating targets and, or sex partners. I like a very masculine man, and body hair to me comes along with that. We are seeing a more sculpted look in society as a whole. People are wearing clipped hairdos, and beards, aside from the bear community, tend to be much shorter than they were 5 years ago. So we may be onto a trend where hairlessness or less hair is in. In any event, this is just to give an example of how the trends have waxed and waned over 2,000 plus years and will continue to do so. Gay men often lead the way stylistically, but we are certainly not the only ones participating in this practice now. Thank you for listening to another episode of BAMMER Talks. This has been Mike Balaban.